morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, LinkedIn Live. It's Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Good morning, Sarah, officially.
Good morning.
I'm hoping that the technical, we won't have any technical glitches, because I can see that my internet connection is a little bit feeling very Friday-ish today, so hopefully it'll be fine. But good morning, everyone. Good morning to the lovely Sarah Painter, who is joining us this morning to talk about parents and carers, employee networks, and all of that good stuff. Good morning if you are watching live on this Friday morning, bright blue skies here in the UK. I don't know what's the weather looking like where you are, Sarah?
Yeah, it's looking pretty sunny. It was a nice pink sky this morning when I woke up.
Amazing.
Yes, hopefully,
yeah,
not too cold today. I think we had a few days of a cold snap, so looking forward to some sunshine.
Haven't we? So so if you are watching live, please do say good morning in the chat. I hope you've had a good week. I hope the weather is good where you are. If you're watching us on the replay, thank you for taking some time out of your day to check out this really fascinating topic. So I've got Sarah Painter with me, who is all things marketing and comms. So Sarah heads up marketing and comms at Dentsu, but you've been in the kind of like sort of like marketing space for a little while, and broader as well, sort of SEO and other things, right, Sarah?
Yes, exactly. I moved into kind of digital marketing about 10 years ago or 12 years ago, and have kind of wiggled my way through and moved officially into our internal marketing team about 2 years ago. So marketing has kind of been my life. and kind of the DEI stuff, my passion on the side.
Yeah, amazing. Good morning, Andre. Andre joining us. Good morning. And Sarah as well, your accent, so people will realize, I guess, your accent isn't the typical sort of Blighty accent. So where are you from originally, and how long have you been in the UK?
Quite a loaded question. My parents are actually British, fun fact, and I was born abroad. I was born in Belgium, but grew up primarily in the US, so quite a bit all over the US. And I moved to the UK in 2018, so I've been here for a while, almost 7 years now. And yeah, I've really loved living here, so here to stay at the moment.
Amazing. And even though you're from the US, we won't talk about the elections today. It's going to be an election-free zone. So if you're thinking of any questions to ask Sarah about parents and carers, in fact, the only thing that we may touch on actually is maybe bits of policy, and maybe how things like family policy, leave, and things like that compare between like the US and the UK, because actually there are probably some quite stark differences. So Sarah is from Dentsu. So talk to us about the employee networks that you have at Dentsu, and then we'll get into the network that you chair.
Yeah, we have about, I think, 9, maybe 10 networks at Dentsu. Right. So I primarily chair the Parents and Carers Network, but I also do a bit with Women in Tech as well. So we've got, kind of gender network, social mobility, proud, disability, represent, which is kind of our ethnicity pillar, well-being, age, inclusion, and then also our VIZs, which is one of my favorites. It's our very important Gen Zs, who I think have been really useful in providing their feedback for what Gen Zs want in the workplace.
I love that. VIZs. I mean, these ERG, these employee network names blow me away every time I hear something quite funky or VIZs, very important Gen Zs. Okay, I love that. I love that.
And I personally chair the Parents and Carers and Women in Tech ones as well, but primarily kind of Parents and Carers I've been doing that for about almost 5 years.
Yeah, perfect. And I also love, actually, when you went through the list of the employee networks, the Gen Z one in particular, Gen Z and social mobility, I think are the two newer ones that I'm seeing in lots of organizations. So I don't know whether all of yours have been going for the same amount of time, or whether those are the newer ones that you've added as well at Dentsu.
Yeah, I'd say probably the gender ones have been going for the longest. And VIZs, I think, is maybe 2 years old. And social mobility's been around for a little while, but Age inclusion is actually one that we've just recently kicked off maybe about a year ago. So I think there's, as we see a need, we try to if we have appetite, we try to create or start a new group, and they're all volunteer-led teams, but we do have full-time DEI employees as well, who sort of help oversee, talking about policies, writing policies, helping us write policies and get things over the line. So it's nice that we've got a bit of a mix of people who are officially in a DEI capacity, but also volunteers who lead those ERGs.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, kind of like leads us nicely onto, the next question. And it's a common challenge for individuals that get involved in this work and chair networks is the feeling of overwhelm and being overloaded, right? Because a lot of people are doing this side of their desk, they've still got a busy day job to do. And, and we were just sort of saying, you've had an event yesterday evening with clients and all of those sorts of things. And you've got families. How do you juggle all of that with chairing a network?
So I think it's not easy. There were definitely times where I might, because it's such a passion project, I might do something on the weekend because I'm just so, excited to get something over the line. But I think one thing that we've done, especially on Parents and Carers, is we actually have 3 ERG co-chairs, which works really nicely because I work full time, but as you can imagine, in Parents and Carers, many people work part time if they're parents. So we've got my other 2 chairs. One works compressed hours, so 4 days a week, and one works 3 days a week. So between us, it actually works really nicely, in that we, I'm around if anything happens on a Friday because I work on Fridays, but we can kind of divide and conquer. And I'd say across, if there's a time when I'm really, really busy. We also are all in kind of different areas. So, functions versus, delivery. So if I'm really, really busy one time, usually they can pick up the slack and vice versa. So I think having the right leadership in an ERG is extremely important. We also have a massive committee. So specifically on Parents and Carers, I think we have maybe 15 people on our committee. So what we try to do is assign each person just one project through the year. So they own the project, they get to do the delivery, get the glory, and we sort of just help make those connections across, getting them to the right people in the organization, or getting them in touch with the right people to help with what they need to get that over the line.
Okay, this is really important, right? So I want to delve into this, because I think this bit of the model, in terms of how you get individuals involved to help with that workload, is really important. And it's something, I know you were involved in the ERG Leader Summit in September. We're going to talk about that. But for next year, which is June, this is going to be one of the panels. It's like, how do you lead an employee network without doing it all off, right? It's a massive challenge. So what you've explained there is you've got a committee. So the committee is quite important, because the committee comes together to help to plan, right? So you're saying you've got quite a large committee of 15. So how did you kind of go about forming the committee, and how does that work, and how often does the committee meet? Just explain that for anybody that's watching, because I think it's really useful.
So the committee meets once a month. We have a shared spreadsheet with all of our activities that we're planning on getting across the line. We also, as ERG leaders, we meet kind of this time of year. So I think in 2 weeks' time, we have our strategy planning session for 2025, where we basically say, these are the 20 or 10 or 5 things that we're going to do next year. And then we bring that to the committee and say, okay, if you'd like to be on the committee, you need to own a project. And my co-chair, Becky, is fantastic at making sure that everybody has a project and that they're delivering on that. Project manager at heart. And then we, just kind of make sure that when we're bringing that up each month, we know when those things are happening, and we help support them in delivering that specific, activity. So I'll admit, as parents and carers, oftentimes we're extremely busy. So, sometimes that's a bit trickier to get over the line as well. But one thing that one of our big projects is called the Sleepless Bunch. So it's for people returning from parental leave. So it's kind of getting everybody in a room together to say, okay, you're back. It's different. It's probably a bit tricky to, maybe you're navigating working part-time, or you're navigating, a change in working pattern, and trying to figure out how, what kind of assistance can I get to pay for nursery, and, this kind of stuff. So being able to get people in that group. And I think specifically, you know, parents and carers are just extremely passionate people about wanting to make their, you know, use their experience to make Dentsu a better place. So if they had an experience that didn't quite work, kind of saying, okay, well, actually, this wasn't great. How can we make it better? And I think that's a big tenet of kind of us as a company, is how can we make things better anyway? And so being able to loop in people who really want to make a difference is easy if they already have that passion, and then giving them that platform and space to be able to actually do it.
Yeah. So I love that. So you've basically got a committee. So you made it sound there as though almost like a condition of the committee is you come on the committee, but you have to take responsibility for delivering something, you know, delivering one of the initiatives or activities that we've got on the plan for next year, right?
Yeah, I think the accountability really helps. You know, think about in your work life, you have an end of year review and you've got KPIs. And so, and I also think having just one thing that maybe you might be really passionate about. So right now we have a project on flexible working and job shares. And, you know, one of my co-chairs is very passionate about that. So she's really, you know, into that particular project. Whereas Fiona, my other co-chair, she really cares about this returning to work experience and how to make that better. So she's kind of focused on that particular project. So I think there's, it enables people to work on something they actually want to work on, and they have the opportunity to sign up for things and own that, but also understanding that that's, you know, one can't just be on the committee and say, oh yes, I do that, and show up to a meeting once a month, but not ever actually deliver on something. We are trying to make real change, and we do expect that of our committee members.
Yeah, I love that. And then how do you manage some of the, I guess, almost like some of the more shared responsibilities or roles? So things like, for example, comms, or, you know, it might come to, I don't know, you know, how events and things like that are organized, just in terms of the practicalities. Do you have somebody that's dedicated to comms, or somebody in the comms teams that's dedicated to networks? You know, how does that work in Dentsu?
Well, it's very convenient that I'm on the marketing and communications team. So sometimes it's nice to have the right people on the committee as well. And I think that's one thing through this, you get so well connected throughout the organization, which is such a big bonus, and a bit, you know, for me as well. But we have, you know, our events team that delivers all of our events for clients, and for our team, they have a form that you can fill out if you'd like some support. And we have kind of ways of working with them, that each ERG kind of gets one hero event every, you know, throughout the year. We've got 9 ERGs. So then we have that, they can get that formal event support for that. And then communications things, we've got like our weekly newsletter, and there's a form you can just fill out to say, okay, yep, we've got this event. Can you put it in the newsletter? So we do rely quite a bit on the comms and events teams for things that we would like to make happen. And they're absolutely fantastic, and also really committed, which is nice and helpful. But I think it would be a little trickier if we didn't have that support in terms of trying to reinvent the wheel each time.
Yeah. And it's a really good point. I would say for anybody that's listening, because this is quite a common challenge that I see in quite a few ERGs, even in very large organizations. Often each ERG has almost like a mini organization that's got, like, you know, their own comms person, their own events, which is fine. It kind of can work, but it does put a lot of burden again on people whose day job is not to be doing comms, or is not to be doing events per se. And so actually I love the model that you're explaining there, in terms of having a mechanism where, you know, individuals in comms and in, you know, events, etc., can support the employee networks, you know, because there is a form to fill in, or each network knows that they're going to have a slot for a hero event, right? That feels like a much better model. And that's why, you know, sometimes when I go into organizations and they haven't got that, I sort of say, well, actually, as networks, how can you come together, and how do we work with HR and the DEI team to, you know, make sure that there is that comms and event support centrally to support the networks, rather than expecting individual networks to pick that up. Good morning. We've got Sabrina Shady joining us. Good morning, Sabrina. Employee networks are such valuable support and resource for people. Absolutely. I think especially for this group, the parents and carers, which is a massive group actually in terms of the need, you know, so people that fall into this. I think I was sharing in the post when I was sort of like setting this up, when it comes to caring responsibilities. So we've got obviously individuals that are parents of dependents, but then caring responsibilities is huge, whether or not you live with somebody that you care for, or actually whether you've just got a family member, whether that's, you know, maybe a relative who is, you know, either elderly or has a disability, or, you know, is living with other conditions. Caring responsibilities are huge at the moment, you know, not least because of the state of social services in this country. So you know, there is that point around the community that you support through your network. I'm guessing is huge and growing, right?
It is. And I think one of the really things that's tricky about carers is finding them. Because oftentimes if one has caring responsibilities, they might not want to tell their boss because they don't want them to think that it's taking away from their work. And I think it's definitely something that's up and coming. I'm both a parent and a carer, so I have a child with additional needs. So, you know, that's kind of a double-edged sword there as well. But I think being able to have just that community. So through the community, I've been able to connect with a couple of other parents who are just a little bit further down the additional needs journey than I am. I'm currently looking at secondary schools for my daughter and which one's going to be the right fit for her. And it's been really, really helpful to get firsthand experience from a parent who says, this is how you have to go through the system. This is what you need to do. If you do X, Y, Z, then you'll be able to get exactly what you need. So I think that's been really helpful. But I will say finding carers throughout the organization is really tricky. This year, we sent around a little form through our internal newsletter that said, hey, if you're a carer, you know, fill this out. We want to send you a small gift, and, you know, we have up to 30 of them or whatever that might be. And we identified probably 5 or 6 more carers that we just didn't know existed. And then we also try to hold some networking sessions as well. But I think caring is something that seems to be on the rise, and it's not easy when you're trying to both work and care at the same time. And a lot of people don't know about flexible working. Maybe they don't have kids, but they do have, you know, parent caring responsibilities, and they might not have ever thought, oh, I could work flexibly, or I could do a different working pattern. So being able to have that group to bounce ideas off and share their own best practices is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, you know, as you're saying, letting people know the support that is available through existing policies, and the support that people can ask for in terms of, you know, whether that be different working patterns, or, you know, paid leave or support, etc. Good morning to Alex McEwen from the amazing Albatross Arts. I'm guessing, Sarah, that you metAlex at the ERG Leader Summit in September.
I think we might have. Yeah, just double check. I think we might have.
Let's so just before we move on, we'll go on to the summit and some of your reflections on that. But just in terms of some of the policies and the ways that you know, the way organizations can support parents and carers more, what are some of the policies and or initiatives that you've been working on in Dentsu that you feel have made some of the biggest changes, or things that you're still working on in terms of policy change?
Absolutely. And policies are the number one thing I'm most proud of. In the time that we've been there, I think we've introduced 5 policies, so or adapted 5 policies. So one thing I think I'm really proud of, and I want to give Nicole Bazzer a big shout out, who's our ERG lead in the UK. She was at Parliament this week to talk about our baby loss policy. And that came into effect about 3 years ago, when we, you know, when we understood that this is a really sensitive topic, but it's something that can have a huge impact on mental health and things like that. And she was in Parliament this week talking about what we've done at Dentsu to make sure that our teams feel supported and have the ability to take the time that they need when they're grieving, or when they have, you know, when they have a loss. So that's one that I'm really proud of. That was probably our first foray into policy work. We also launched a carers policy. So it's kind of 2 weeks leave throughout the year to be able to do any caring responsibilities. We expanded our paternity leave, and, you know, kind of day one right to paternity. We also have a premature baby policy. So I think that's one thing. You know, I have so many friends who've had premature babies that you almost waste so much of your mat leave in the hospital and try, and then you kind of lose out on that special time at the end. So being able to allow someone who's having what can be a really traumatic experience, that additional time paid leave to really deal with that kind of hospital experience, and then continue to be able to have their maternity or paternity leave on the back end of that.
I love that. I love that because, we're talking here about significant life events, right? Significant life events, and everything from the baby loss policy that you mentioned, all the way through to carers leave, and the day one rights, which we know that day one rights is becoming almost more of like the norm anyway, in terms of with the new government. You mentioned there also paternity leave, which I just wanted to delve into. Where did you land on paternity leave, as in like leave for fathers?
Yeah, no, and that one was tricky, because I think, and it's funny, 3 women leading an ERG coming forward and saying, we think that men need more time off, because I do think it's critical in terms of ensuring that equality. I also work with a charity called Equality Starts at Home, and so much of that starts from the day that the baby is born. That if if the father's not taking that time to support, then it all just becomes something that the mother's dealing with, right? So, or the birthing parent, or whoever that might look like. So, I think where we landed, what we did actually, which might be more important for those listening, is we created an entire business case. So we mapped out where all our competitors were in terms of paternity leave, where we were. And nothing like a little healthy competition to show that we were behind the curve at the time. So we do have shared parental leave, which is great. So we have equal maternity and paternity if you use shared parental leave. But our kind of argument was that shared parental leave does take off from the mother or the birthing parent's time. And that we wanted to enable, our team members to take the time that they really needed. So we mapped out then with finance and numbers what that impacts might be, from if we extended it to 4 weeks to 6 weeks to 8 weeks, et cetera. So we did land on 6 weeks, which is kind of, no questions asked, paternity leave, 6 weeks, which I think we still have more work to do. But, we had support from the entire ELT, and our CEO and our head of finance were all very supportive of where we landed. And I think long term we have a little bit more work to go, but I was really pleased with we kind of asked for 4 weeks and they said, actually, let's do 6. So I think that kind of also goes back to the support of senior management. If you have if they're on board and they're really invested, then things like that are super easy.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I love and when you explain the approach there, the fact that you worked with finance to help with the business case and all of that sort of stuff, really important, these informal relationships. And then, as you were saying, getting that senior support as well. Absolutely critical. So just going back to Alex was saying, the unpaid carers go under the radar. No one speaks about the sandwich years, looking after kids and older family members, right? I mean, my daughter's grown up now, but lots of women in the middle actually in those sandwich years and going through menopause. I mean, that is like, it's like a triple whammy. Like, you've got kids, you've got, elderly parents potentially, and you're going through menopause. It's a nightmare. Awesome work, Sarah Painter, on the policies for time out for dealing with significant life events. Absolutely. But I love that, in terms of, when you want to make policy change, because especially when it comes to things like leave, businesses are thinking about what is the financial impact of that.
Absolutely.
How as a business do we cope with people being out of the business for so many weeks, months, etc. And obviously when it comes to paternity leave, and I love what you said in terms of it really does paternity leave drives gender equality actually in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of people connect it, but you have to enable men and create that culture whereby men are comfortable leaving the business. So one of the things that follows as well is the culture change and starting to get senior leaders, male leaders, taking the extended paternity leave. And I love the thing you said about the benchmarking. So comparing to competitors, where are we? There's lots of organizations. And the other thing as well, this is very different to the States, right? When it comes to
yes.
paternity and maternity leave, which can be a challenge if you're a global organization as well, because you may be looking at what the States have got, which is like very little, like it's not even worth talking about, and wanting to do something different in the UK. So that can be a challenge as well, can't it, I guess?
It can, and I think it often depends on how the company is set up. But I actually worked in the US. I had my first child in the US, and I had my second child in the UK. So I have experience on both sides of the pond. And I do think, in general, I do think companies are making big strides in the US too, even though there's not a legal requirement for them to be offering time. So I've actually been really impressed with with how much time we offer in the US. And I think, it's a little bit funny. It's kind of, I haven't been able to benefit from a lot of these policies because oftentimes it's happened to me and then they've made the change a year later. And so I haven't been able to benefit myself personally, but there's a little bit of, let's just make this better for the next person. If it was that bad for me, can I make it a little bit better for the next person? And slowly but surely we'll get to, I think, where we really should be as, in terms of what's the right thing to do for everyone, for the kids, for the parents, and for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And good morning, Lucy. So Lucy Wilson, Lucy saying relationship building is such an important factor within the ERG employee resources, often forgotten about and not enabled. I've met so many people in business from running ERGs. Yeah, absolutely. The relationship building, I think, in terms of getting things done, and where you started, Sarah, talking about the committee and how the committee works. And given that everybody's quite busy, so the relationship building to get things done, like policy change, but also the relationship building in terms of, you mentioned Nicole, your individual, at Parliament, and talking about baby loss and things like, the internal relationships, but also the external relationships can really help as well, right? Because
absolutely,
the organization, do you want to
think
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so at Dentsu, obviously we have many brands within our organization, and we've got a lot of complexity, and it's been so amazing. Just people who I would never cross paths with in my day-to-day job, I've met them through either parents and carers or some of the other ERGs, to the point that I walk into our end of year party, or I walk into something and I will always know someone in the room, which is, that's the worst feeling, walking in kind of, oh, I don't know anyone here, right? You always know someone in the room because you've met them through whatever event, and we're all always there to support one another's events. I think kind of similarly, meeting you, and you've been able to connect me with so many people across who have really similar passions that I've been able to learn from some of the things they did. I still have my notepad of things that I wrote down at the summit of, oh, that's an amazing idea. Like, let me see if I can bring that to to the organization, which actually I did. So we, our co-chairs and I were talking about whether or not we were going to be stepping down and how we would handle that. And one of the other panels at the summit had kind of said, oh, well, we had an application process for that. And so we said, well, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? Because then it's a formal process, and somebody knows that it's kind of a real opportunity, and it's a recognized opportunity across the business as well. So things like that, I think just little tiny things can make a huge difference in how effective you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much for being involved in the summit. I'm trying to remember which panel you were on, but I can't quite
it was
remember.
Engaging Members was the one I was on.
Okay. Yeah, engaging members, absolutely perfect. Because I do love, what you're saying about your model, and the thing about, people taking notes. That was one of my takeaways, was watching everybody scribbling copious notes of all of the ideas and things. And Alex saying here, ERG groups are such melting pots. They really are. So
I'd say from my ERGs that I've met with, I've learned so much, right? So, obviously I know a lot about being a parent and a carer, but I don't know as much about some of the other ERGs and their experiences. And I think being able to hear that on, we have a monthly steerco, and being able to hear what they're doing and what matters to them. We had a whole session on kind of supporting people who are kind of transitioning and transgender, and there was a lot I just didn't know, and so I was able to get a ton of information and then make sure that I'm an ally in the right way, and I'm showing up in the right way for my team members.
Yeah, amazing. Good morning, Andrea Southall. I wrote so many notes.
You too.
Yeah, honestly, literally at one point I looked around and it's like everyone's head was just down writing notes. I almost feel like and Alex who's listening, so Alex from Albatross facilitated the reflection sessions, and brought these lovely, like, you know, little doodle pads and things like that. But I almost wonder whether we need like big notebooks, because I feel like people wrote so many notes at the summit. And
those doodles were amazing. I took them home for my kids and they loved it.
Really? Oh, that's
it was
fascinating.
Great. I loved them.
And Serena here, ERG provides so much insight on lived experiences and addressing discrimination in many areas. Absolutely. Honestly, the richness of experience in terms of you know, what ERGs bring together, it's just such a powerful movement, you know. And I know, you know, Maceo Owens, who we had as our keynote speaker, and that's probably why her organization is called the ERG movement. Yeah, the ERG movement, because it is a movement, you know. And if we empower these individuals, and if we can get businesses to really get behind it and understand the power of it, you know, it's got potential for so much. Okay. We talked a little bit about sort of sponsorship and leadership. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that in terms of the importance of sponsorship and leadership within organizations for ERGs.
Absolutely. I think so we've been really lucky to have excellent sponsors. So Chloe, who is our head of legal, is our current sponsor, and Ann Stagg, who is our CEO of one of our businesses, are our current sponsors. But I think having people in those levels. So one thing that Chloe always brings is how we consider the legal aspect of this. So it's always a little bit of a different angle, but they can bring something that's really passionate to the right people as well. And I think, you know, one thing I love whenever I get on a call with Ann is she's always challenging. Well, what more can we do here, and what more can we do there, and really pushing us to think outside the box. But in general, I think it's also can be a bit of a reverse mentorship as well. So if it's something that maybe isn't, you know, I think we've got some ERG leaders who are on ERGs that maybe they don't have lived experience with, so they actually are growing as well and being able to take that information and learnings to their wider team. So I think in terms of getting stuff done, policy, etc., it's been critical, and just making sure that people are aware and just getting feedback on, you know, hey, what do you think? Do you think people will actually do this? Do you think the business will go for this policy change? Because, you know, they might not, right? So being able to get that feedback of how we even lay out that business case has been critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something about when, you know, when you've got that senior support, you know, from the jump, like from the get-go, it kind of becomes easier to take those things through the process anyway, right? Because you can eke out all of the challenges, and obviously a good sponsor will help to figure out where some of the roadblocks are, and figure out where some of the obstacles might be, and some of the individuals that may need a bit of working on outside of the room before you kind of get that policy sign off, right? So all of that is and
even really just important. Credibility to the group. So I remember actually during COVID, and Ann Stagg was our sponsor, and she sent an invite to basically all the parents and carers in the network to say, hey, I appreciate you're working from home. You've got kids at home. This is hard. Let's just talk about it. And I think having that come from someone really senior, and just having 30 minutes of her time to kind of say, well, this is how I'm struggling. How are you guys handling it? And to be able to give her that real feedback, she actually then took that to say, hey, parents are struggling with this. Why don't we change that over here? And we'll make sure that they feel supported during this very hectic time. So I think there's just a level of credibility that having an exec sponsor really lends as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. Honestly, I've got some notes, some feedback about notes. So I've got a suggestion from Lucy for the next ERG Leader Summit, which is in June next year. A virtual note taker, which can be shared afterwards, would be amazing. Okay, we'll think about that, Lucy. We will definitely think about that. Safia, good morning, Safia. I hope you are well. Doodling and fidget toys should be more normalized. We've actually been thinking about fidget toys for the tables, Safia. So watch this space. And Alex got a great idea there. Visual scribe works well too, Lucy, as well. Yeah, lots of things that we can do. Well, we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up sort of soon. But should we just leave anybody that's listening with maybe just some final tips for fellow ERG and employee network leaders from yourself? You know, if people are watching this, whether they are parents and carers or just employee networks more broadly, what tips would you leave them with? What's your kind of like biggest kind of coping strategy or success tip?
I'd say probably just celebrating all the wins and celebrating them really loudly and internally and externally is a big one. So it can be, being an ERG lead can feel sometimes like you're doing a lot of work and nobody cares about it, right? So it can sometimes feel that way. And I think one of the things that we always do is just we post about it on LinkedIn and we tag the people who were involved and we share it in our, you know, in all of our town halls and things like that. So where you can really shout and celebrate and give credit to the people who are putting a ton of effort into this as an ERG lead, that's how you're going to get more committee members to come. If they see, oh, hey, all these people on this, you know, parents and carers committee keep getting mentioned on LinkedIn, and oh, I want to be part of that committee. You know, I think there's a little bit of, you really have to have that pride and celebration of even the small wins, even something really, really tiny is extremely important. And I think, you know, obviously everyone who's going to be a lead is going to be really passionate. So, you know, continuing that, but also make sure you block time for it. So, you know, not spending hours and hours outside of work, you know, trying to figure out how you can fit it in and either delegate or team to make sure that it happens. But, you know, not being one person and trying to solve all the problems on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sarah, it sounds as though we may need to have you on another panel again next year.
I'd love to.
But I love your advice there. Celebrating wins very loudly. Celebrate the wins loudly. Give the recognition, give the flowers to the individuals that are involved in doing this work and helping to make the change, because, and as you say, that will encourage others to get involved, you know, because they'll see that you know, and obviously it's not, they're not doing it just for the recognition, but they'll see that there's a benefit to it, and they get to see the successes, and everybody wants to be part of a winning team, right? So
exactly.
Celebrate the wins. Great. We're going to wrap up there. I'm going to leave everybody to get on with their Friday or to start the weekend, you know, maybe if Friday's a non-working day for you. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on this
having me.
sunny Friday morning. Thank you. If you've been for everybody that's been in the comments, thank you so much for joining us. Lucy, Alex, Andrea, Sabrina, Andre, I don't know whether you're still with us. Andre was the very first good morning. Thank you all for watching. If you've watched live, if you've watched on the replay, thank you for taking some time out of your day to check out this conversation. Sarah, I will see you again soon. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.